cheating wife got her karma when the affair partner turned out to be a scammer and stole her savings. It all started when Mike and Sarah seemed like the perfect couple. They had been married for over 10 years and had built a life that looked ideal from the outside. A nice house, good jobs, and 2 beautiful kids. Everyone thought they had it all. But beneath the surface, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. Over time, Mike noticed a change in Sarah. She seemed distant, always on her phone, smiling at texts she'd never share. She started working late, going out with her so-called friends more often, and finding excuses to avoid spending time together as a family. At first, Mike thought it was just the stress of life. Work had been tough, the kids were growing up fast, and things were naturally getting busier. He tried to be supportive, giving her space when she needed it, taking over more responsibilities at home, hoping she'd come around, but things only got worse. Mike noticed Sarah becoming more secretive. She'd step out to take calls, delete her messages, and was overly protective of her phone. When he tried to ask her what was going on, she brushed him off, saying he was being paranoid. It was like she was slipping away from him, little by little, and no matter what he did, he couldn't reach her. Then one day, Mike found something that confirmed his worst fears. He was cleaning the house, and while vacuuming under the couch, he found a piece of paper. It was a hotel receipt from a few weeks ago, dated for a day when Sarah had said she was working late. His heart sank. He knew he had to confront her, but he was terrified of what he might find out. That evening, he asked Sarah about the receipt. She looked startled, but quickly recovered, laughing it off, saying it was just a mistake, that she had met a friend for coffee and had to use the hotel lobby because everywhere else was full. But Mike wasn't convinced. He decided to dig deeper, and what he found confirmed his suspicions. A few days later, he managed to get a look at her phone while she was in the shower. What he saw shattered him. There were messages from a man named Rick. The texts were flirtatious, intimate, and clearly more than just friends. Mike's world fell apart. He felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and sadness. How could she do this? What did he do wrong? Why wasn't he enough? For days, Mike wrestled with how to confront Sarah. When he finally did, she didn't deny it. She admitted to the affair but blamed him, saying he was too distant, too focused on work, too boring. Mike was devastated. He had loved her, supported her, done everything he could to be a good husband and father. But apparently, it wasn't enough. But here's where things get interesting. Sarah wasn't just having an affair. She was infatuated with this man, Rick. She told Mike that she loved Rick and that he was different from anyone she'd ever met. He was exciting, charming, and gave her the attention and passion she had been missing. She wasn't going to leave him. Instead, she wanted a divorce. Mike was heartbroken, but agreed to a separation, hoping that with time she might realize what she was losing. But Sarah was too far gone. She moved out and quickly started a new life with Rick. Mike was left to pick up the pieces, taking care of the kids, managing the house, and dealing with the fallout from their broken marriage. Weeks turned into months, and Sarah's relationship with Rick seemed to be going well, or so she thought. She bragged to everyone about how happy she was, how she had found the love of her life. She even started to flaunt it on social media, posting pictures of them together, going on vacations, and living what seemed like a dream life. But there were signs that not everything was as perfect as she made it out to be. Rick was always vague about his background, where he came from, and what he did for a living. He'd talk about these big business deals, investments, and money-making opportunities, but he never seemed to have a steady job. He was charming, yes, but he was also evasive, and his stories often didn't add up. Sarah, however, was blind to it all. She was in love and believed everything he said. She started lending him money for his business ventures. At first, it was small amounts, covering expenses for trips, investments, and urgent needs. But soon the amounts grew larger. Rick would come up with excuses. A big deal was just about to close, an investment opportunity that couldn't be missed, or some problem that required immediate cash. Sarah, driven by her infatuation and blinded by Rick's charm, kept giving him money. She dipped into her savings, sold some of her possessions, and even took out loans to help him. All the while, she was convinced that Rick would soon pay her back, with interest. After all, he promised her a life of luxury and wealth, and she believed every word. But the reality was far from what she imagined. One day, Rick came up with an elaborate story about a huge investment opportunity overseas. He convinced Sarah to wire a large sum of money to an account he provided, promising her that they'd double it in no time. It was her entire savings, but Rick assured her that it was worth it. She transferred the money, dreaming of the life they'd soon have. But then Rick vanished. Just like that. No calls, no texts, no explanation. His phone number was disconnected and his social media accounts disappeared. Sarah was in shock. She tried reaching out, searching for him, but it was like he had never existed. Panic set in as the reality hit her. She had been scammed. Her life savings, gone. The man she had left her husband and family for, the one she thought loved her, had been nothing but a con artist. Desperate, Sarah hired a private investigator, hoping to track Rick down, but all the investigator found was a trail of similar stories. Rick had a history of charming women, making them fall in love, and then stealing their money. Sarah wasn't his first victim, and she likely wouldn't be his last. It turned out, Rick wasn't even his real name. With her savings gone, her reputation damaged, and no way to recover the money, Sarah's life began to unravel. The dream she had chased had turned into a nightmare. She realized too late that she had lost everything: her marriage, her money, and the man she thought loved her. Meanwhile, Mike was picking up the pieces of his own life. He had struggled initially, dealing with the pain of betrayal and the challenges of being a single parent, but he was slowly rebuilding. He focused on his kids, his job, and his own well-being. He stayed away from social media, from the gossip, and from everything that had happened with Sarah. He wanted to move on, to find some peace. One day, out of the blue, Sarah showed up at Mike's doorstep. She looked exhausted, broken, and defeated. She tried to explain everything that had happened: how Rick had scammed her, how she had lost everything. She begged for his forgiveness, for another chance. She said she realized now that she had made a terrible mistake, that she still loved him and wanted to come back home. But Mike had learned a lot during those months apart. He had learned his worth, learned what it meant to be happy on his own, to be free from the toxicity that had poisoned their marriage. He listened to her story, felt some pity for her, but he had moved on. He calmly told her that there was no going back, that too much had happened, and that he had found peace in their separation. Sarah left, devastated, realizing that her actions had led her to this point. She had chased a fantasy, a dream that wasn't real, and lost everything in the process. Her karma had come back full circle. The affair that promised her excitement and passion had ended up taking everything from her. Mike, on the other hand, continued to grow. He started dating again, taking things slow, learning to trust and open his heart once more. He focused on being the best father he could be, finding joy in the little things, and moving forward with his life. He didn't need revenge or to see Sarah suffer. Her own choices had done that for her. And so, life moved on. Sarah was left to deal with the consequences of her actions, a stark reminder that sometimes the grass isn't greener on the other side. Sometimes the choices we make out of selfishness and deceit come back to haunt us in ways we could never imagine. And sometimes, just sometimes, karma has a way of catching up with those who think they can outrun it. So, what do you think about Sarah's story? Do you think she deserved what happened to her? Or do you think she was just unlucky? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.